This is a reading from My Little Bhakti Companion, Questions and Answers by Chaitanya Charan. The first chapter is Clarifying Spiritual Fundamentals. Question: if spiritual happiness is eternal, why is our experience of that happiness temporary? Answer summary: because we don't stay on the spiritual level steadily. Answer: let's use an analogy that is drawn from the Srimad Bhagavatam and elucidated by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his devotional classic Harinam Chintamani. Krishna and the happiness in his devotional service are like the sun, whereas our material conditionings are like clouds that block our vision of the sun. These clouds exist due to our own past and present material indulgences. Where they are located in the sky is determined by the influences of the modes of material nature. Sometimes, when the clouds are positioned such that they don't obstruct the sight of the sun, the influence of the lower modes of passion and ignorance on us is not much. So we can connect with Krishna tangibly and thereby relish spiritual happiness. At other times, when the clouds move and obscure the sight of the sun, the influence of these modes increases, so we can't relish any spiritual happiness. The Bhagavad Gita 14:10 indicates that the modes are in a state of constant conflict, with each vying for supremacy. Depending on which modes gets the upper hand, spiritual happiness appears to us as intangible in goodness, peripheral in passion, and unreal in ignorance. However, through all our changing perceptions, spiritual happiness always remains real and available. If we want to avail of spiritual happiness steadily, our actions are critical, especially two sets of actions. Firstly, what we do when we can glimpse the sun, and secondly, what we do when we can't. Whenever we can glimpse the sun, that is, whenever we can relish spiritual happiness, we need to tap that opportunity fully. If we absorb ourselves deeply into that experience, the resulting memories and impressions will become strong and rich. This will give us the experiential conviction that spiritual happiness is for real. Whenever we can't glimpse the sun, that is, whenever we can't relish spiritual happiness, we need to tolerate and navigate that phase intelligently. During this phase, cravings for material enjoyment may resurface in our consciousness. If we give in to those cravings, we create fresh clouds that further block our perception of the sun. That is, we create fresh surroundings which make it more difficult for us to relish spiritual happiness. However, if we tolerate those cravings, as the Gita 5:23 recommends, then the clouds pass in due course of time and we regain our access to spiritual happiness. Thankfully, we don't have to endure material cravings forever. Devotional service enables us to do much more than that. Just tolerate the cravings. It enables us to even eliminate them. If the sun rays fall on the clouds long enough, the resulting heat evaporates the clouds. Similarly, if we expose ourselves to the Krishna sun, that is, keep remembering and serving Krishna long enough, then the resulting purification evaporates our cloud-like surroundings. That's why the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, after analyzing the influences of the three modes, concludes with the recommendation 14:26 that we practice devotional service undeviatingly so as to transcend the modes. How can we ensure that our practice of devotional service remains undeviating despite the influences of the modes? By various by using various supports like the following. Number one, philosophical conviction that comes by serious study of scriptures. Number two, commitment to live according to spiritual principles that comes from our own resolution and from our initiation vows. Number three, devotional culture that decreases our exposure to agitating worldly stimuli and increases our exposure to stimuli that reminds us of Krishna. Association of like-minded devotees that nourishes us emotionally while also inspiring us spiritually. Number five, adequate engagement in practical forms of devotional service that keeps us busy so that we don't have time for material indulgence, even if temptations prompt us. Number six, sincere prayer and fervent chanting of the holy names that invokes Krishna's mercy, which accelerates the removal of the clouds. Of course, several of these are not just supports to devotional service, they are themselves limbs of devotional service. But we can refer to them as supports in the sense that they can support us even when we falter on the spiritual path due to not being able to relish spiritual happiness. Through such supports, we can keep ourselves connected with Krishna steadily, even when we don't experience spiritual happiness. The more we make that connection steady, the more the clouds of our conditionings evaporate, and the more our experience of spiritual happiness becomes steady till finally our connection becomes constant. Then the clouds evaporate completely and we start relishing spiritual happiness at every moment. Thank you.